So as this is a full face tutorial, I'm starting off with the brows. I've been using the Ultimate Brow Kit for years. It's under a £5 and it's brilliant. You've got a light and a dark shade of brown, a brow wax, and even a tweezers and a little brow brush for sculpting and shaping the brows. My brows are a lot lighter than my hair colour and are sparse, so I'm just using the powder to darken the brows and fill in those gaps. To clean up the shape of my brows and define the brows, I go in with a concealer. I'm using the Photofocus concealer today, and it's been on the market a couple of years at this stage, but they've recently launched some new shades and this is one of them. I've actually now taken that leftover concealer down from the brow bone to the lash line using a synthetic brush. Any of the rose gold brushes you see me using are actually from the Wet n Wild Pro brush line too. I have an entire video on them which I'll link below. The reason I'm coating the eye with the concealer is because I'm using it as a base for the shadows to come. Next then I'm focusing on the skin, so I'm taking one of these new makeup sponges in the Photofocus Rose Toner. I've previously wet my sponge and squeezed it out, and now I'm spritzing it with the toner and applying the toner to the skin. This way instead of just spraying it all over. Now I wasn't sure about this because it was so heavily scented and my skin is highly sensitive, but I actually don't like rose scented things anyway, but decided to give it a go for the sake of the video, but no, I actually didn't like it. Then I'm taking the Rose Primer Serum, adding a couple of drops of that to my face, and then taking my damp sponge once again and using that to blend the product into the skin. Now, these two products are a miss from me. I'm 99.9% certain that it was these that broke my skin out and not the little bumps a few hours later. I think if you're very sensitive like myself, they're ones to steer clear of. They're just very perfumed for my skin anyway, unfortunately. On to foundation now. I'm taking one of the new Photofocus stick foundations. Now, I love a stick foundation. My YSL one recently ran out and I'm hoping this will be somewhat comparable. As you can see, the coverage is great and it's actually a perfect match for my tan, so happy days. Usually I wouldn't wear a stick foundation like this. I'd actually apply a liquid and then add the stick to the areas that I wanted a little more coverage in. I'm using quite a dense brush and I'm just patting over where I've striped the product to keep the coverage. If I swept my brush over the foundation, it would shear out, and I want full coverage today because my skin is acting the absolute ham. I'd say if you're applying it all over the skin like myself, go for a hydrating primer underneath, or the product can be hard to move around the skin. So here's a side by side. You can see how it covers. It's very good coverage. I'm very happy. No redness peeking through. It covers blemishes. Obviously you can still see the texture, but you can't cover that. So I've just applied it to the other half of my face, and now I'm going back to the concealer and adding some of that under the eyes and then to the centre of my forehead. Some people would apply to the chin, but I'm not because the concealer is lighter than my foundation and I have blemishes on my chin area, and adding a lighter concealer there would only emphasise them, which I definitely don't want. Then I'm just using the brush that I use for foundation to blend the concealer into the skin. A dense brush like this will keep the coverage, a fluffier one will really buff it out and give you a lighter coverage. Now I'm setting everything in place, so I'm taking the Photofocus pressed powder in the shade Golden Tan. Again, I'm using another one of those Wet n Wild brushes to pat the powder onto the skin. Patting motions, again, I'm using because we don't want to disturb the foundation. We want to just set it in place so that it doesn't budge or break down throughout the day. Then I'm taking a bronzer and I'm going to warm up the skin. So I'm using an angled brush and I'm going to begin in the hollows of my cheeks. Now this is a beautiful bronzer, but I decided that my tan wasn't dark enough to get away with wearing this shade. It was a bit too warm for my skin at the moment, so I switched to another bronzer. But it was a bit of a fail because I actually forgot to clean off my brush before I used it, so I ended up adding more of that warm bronzer anyway, but I worked around it. So I'm adding this on the cheeks again, up around the forehead and down onto the neck. Then I'm patting some blush onto the apples of my cheeks. Now I don't have a photo of this blush because I smashed it, but it was a really nice pink from the Colour Icon range. This blush is quite a vibrant shade, and even though I tried to use a light hand to make sure it wasn't too overpowering, I did pat some of my face powder over the cheeks again just to blend that blush in. Next then I'm going to highlight the skin, so I'm taking my favourite shade of Megaglo highlighting powder and adding this to my skin. These highlighters give like a wet look to the skin, they blend like a dream. It doesn't look like you just have a big powdery stripe of, highlighter on your face. It just gives the most beautiful sheen to the skin. So I add this to the tops of the cheeks, the side of my nose, up around the brow and above my lip. Speaking of lips, I'm going to prep them now with this scrub. Now I actually cut out probably a minute of footage of me trying to use a lip scrub, and it just balled up and kind of fell off my face, but when I got it going it was grand, and it actually worked surprisingly well to prep my lips for the liquid lippy to come. So liquid lipsticks are another product that Wet n Wild do very well. I love the liquid Catsuit lipsticks, but I've only ever used the matte ones, and this is actually a high shine lipstick. Because it's so glossy, I find to get an opaque finish you need 2 layers. So the first application I just focused on perfecting the shape of my lips, and then the second application was just to boost the colour. I don't usually like a glossy lip, but I do have to say that I actually really enjoyed the change. Now onto the eyes, so I'm taking this palette here called Secret Garden Rendezvous, and it's from the Rebel Rose collection. I'm beginning with this pinky cranberry shade and I'm adding this to the eye area. I'm going for, I suppose, a more autumnal look today, or like, I know we're not exactly in autumn yet, so maybe it's a nighttime look for most people, or maybe even Halloween if you don't wear a lot of makeup. Anyway, like, I'm rambling. So I'm adding this into the crease now, and this is actually in real time. As you can see, it only takes around 15 seconds to get that colour into the eye area and get a decent blend. I'm going in now with a second application. The first was just to get the colour onto the eyes with a decent blend, and the second coat is to intensify the look. As I've mentioned before, you'll either get a nice pigmentation or a nice fade on first application, not both. Again, this clip is in real time, so in a matter of 30 odd seconds I have that shade applied and blended. Then I'm hopping over to the House of Thorns eyeshadow palette, and I'm taking some of the darker red shade and I'm using this to add depth. I'm starting by patting it down on the outer third of the eye and taking it into the crease. Then I'm buffing what's left on my brush across the lid. Once I've all product off my brush, dipping back in again and repeating the process. Now I'm taking the black from the palette, and usually I finish off with my final layer of depth in the crease with a black, but today I'm using the black eyeshadow to create my winged liner. I'm going for a smoky liner today, which I don't wear enough. I actually love the effect it gives, and I think it's great for beginners because you really can't go wrong. I start by using an angled brush to pull the shadow into the shape that I want, and use the angles of your brush to your advantage. If you struggle with the tail, stamp down the brush to create the wing. And then what I like to do is I just go in with a pencil brush and start smudging over the top. If you still can't get the tail perfect, there's ways around that. I'm taking a little more of that foundation now on a small C-shaped brush, and I'm adding that along the edge of the tail to sharpen it up and just to make it a bit more precise. Then I'm going back in and adding some more of that black close to the lash line. You want it darkest at the lash line, and then it to fade up from there. Moving on to the lower lash line now, I'm taking that first cranberry shade and I'm using a small bullet shaped brush to smoke this shadow down along the lower lash line. Once I have that in place, then I'm taking the deeper red and I'm repeating the process. I'm smoking that all the way down along there too. Then I'm going back in with my angled brush again and some black eyeshadow, and I'm patting the black along the lower lash line, bringing it only around halfway across the eye, and then I'm using my small bullet shaped brush and I'm softening the shadow, and in doing that it'll take the black across the rest of the lash line without it looking kind of too thick and harsh in that inner third. So I don't actually have a black kohl pencil from Wet n Wild, so I'm using one from another affordable brand and I'm lining the waterline with that. Then I'm going back to my palette and I'm taking the gold shade and I'm using the Wet n Wild pencil brush just to pat this around the tear duct of the eye to give a nice pop, and it also matches my nails. Then I've added some lashes, and now I'm using the new Mega Volume mascara to blend my own lashes in with the false ones, and then that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, let me know and I'll catch you all soon.